In an age forged by blood and chaos, a new order would rise from the ashes of a fallen empire. This is the story of Britain's brutal transformation, where warlords clashed, kingdoms crumbled, and heroes emerged from the shadows. From the last remnants of Roman rule to the unstoppable force of Viking invasions, the land was forever scarred by centuries of conflict and survival. As the legions of Rome retreated in 410 AD, they left behind a fractured, vulnerable province, an island abandoned to its fate. What followed was a relentless struggle, a saga of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms fighting for dominance in a world consumed by chaos. The peaceful order of Roman Britain was gone, replaced by a maelstrom of war, betrayal, and survival. In this episode, we unravel the epic tale of how these Germanic invaders, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, rose to power, shaping the destiny of an entire island. From the desperate cries of the Britons to the war drums of Viking raiders, the land was torn apart. Yet amid the destruction, a figure looms on the horizon, a man destined to unite a broken people and face the greatest threat of them all. Alfred the Great's rise is imminent, but before he can step into history, we must first journey through the blood-soaked centuries that preceded him. This is not just the story of kingdoms and kings. It's the story of a people fighting for survival, of warriors and rulers striving to claim their place in a changing world. This is the Anglo-Saxon Saga. As we saw in our previous video about the King Alaric and Visigoths, the Western Roman Empire was in a state of severe decline in the early 5th century. Pressured by invasions from multiple fronts and internal political chaos, the empire could no longer defend its distant provinces. In 410 AD, in that exact year, Visigoths under King Alaric sacked Rome. The Roman Emperor Honorius made a decision that would forever change the fate of Britain. He sent a letter to the Romano-British cities, instructing them to look to their own defences, effectively signalling the withdrawal of Roman military presence from the island. This letter, often referred to as the Rescript of Honorius, was a response to the dire situation in Britain, which had been left vulnerable due to the withdrawal of Roman military forces. For nearly 4 centuries, Britain had been a part of the Roman Empire, benefiting from its advanced infrastructure, military protection, and administrative organization. The Hadrian's Wall, built in 122 AD, had once protected the northern frontier from Pictish tribes, while towns like Londinium, modern London, and Eboracum, modern York, had flourished as Roman provincial capitals. But as the legions departed in the early 5th century, Britain was left defenceless, vulnerable to raids and internal fragmentation. The Romano-British elites, who had long relied on Roman support, now found themselves struggling to maintain order. Without the logistical and military backbone of Rome, local rulers attempted to assert authority, but their power was often fragmented and contested. Magnus Maximus, a Roman general who had previously ruled parts of Britain, had already stripped the island of a substantial portion of its troops in 383 AD, when he led a campaign to the continent. This depletion of forces only worsened the situation as the 5th century progressed. By 411 AD, the effects of the Roman withdrawal were painfully evident. Pictish tribes from the north, Scotty raiders from Ireland, and the Saxons from across the North Sea began to intensify their attacks on Britain's coasts and settlements. The remaining Britons, many of whom were descendants of Romanized citizens, found it increasingly difficult to fend off these incursions. Towns and villas that had once been symbols of Roman prosperity were abandoned or fell into disrepair. Adding to the turmoil, the Saxons, Germanic warriors from present-day northern Germany and southern Denmark, saw Britain as ripe for settlement. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, a historical record compiled centuries later, hints at this growing presence, noting the increasing raids by Saxon pirates and the inability of the native Britons to defend themselves against the new wave of invaders. In an effort to secure some form of defence, local rulers like Vortigern, a British king, made a decision that would have long-lasting consequences. Vortigern is believed to have come to power around 425 AD, capitalizing on this instability. Around 449 AD, Vortigern invited the Saxons to Britain, hoping they would act as mercenaries and protect his kingdom from the Picts and Scots. Hengist and Horsa, leaders of the Jutes, also arrived with their forces. The Saxons initially helped drive back the invaders, but soon became dissatisfied with their treatment and began to turn against Vortigern. Their growing power led to conflicts that ultimately resulted in Vortigern losing control over his kingdom. According to some sources, Vortigern married Rowena, the daughter of Hengist, in an attempt to solidify his alliance with the Saxons. This union is often portrayed as both a political maneuver and a source of tension. Following his marriage alliance, tensions escalated between Vortigern's forces and the Saxons. Notably, his son Vortimer fought valiantly against them but was ultimately killed in battle. This defeat marked a significant turning point in Vortigern's reign. By 457 AD, Vortigern faced a decisive defeat at Crayford against Saxon forces. Following this loss, he fled to North Wales, effectively ending his rule and marking a shift in power towards the Anglo-Saxons, who began to occupy more territory in Britain. Vortigern is often portrayed negatively in historical texts. He is seen as a foolish king whose decisions allowed for the permanent settlement of Saxons in Britain, leading to centuries of conflict and cultural change. His story has been embellished through legends and medieval literature, contributing to the narrative of British history during this era. He is frequently mentioned in works like Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain, which further romanticized his life and reign. Vortigern remains a controversial figure in British history, viewed as both a desperate ruler trying to protect his people and as one whose actions inadvertently facilitated the decline of native British power in favor of incoming Saxon settlers. His legacy serves as a cautionary tale about alliances and leadership during times of crisis. By the mid-5th century, the once unified Roman province of Britannia had fractured into small competing kingdoms. The Roman roads, which had once been the arteries of trade and communication, now connected fragmented, isolated communities. Towns that had thrived under Roman rule fell into disrepair or were abandoned entirely. The surviving Romano-British population, increasingly isolated, clung to their Roman identity and traditions, but their hold on power was slipping away. The Saxons, along with other Germanic tribes like the Angles and Jutes, were laying the foundation for what would become the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. By the mid-6th century, Britain was a mosaic of emerging Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, each built on the ashes of Roman Britain. The Saxons had claimed much of the southern territory, while the Angles and Jutes established footholds in the east and north. These groups gradually displaced or assimilated the Romano-British population, who struggled to maintain their culture and identity in the face of relentless expansion. The Kingdom of Kent, founded by the Jutes in the mid-5th century, was among the first major Anglo-Saxon polities to emerge. The kingdom's founding is traditionally linked to the arrival of Hengist and Horsa, two Jutish brothers invited by Vortigern to help defend his lands against the Picts. Initially mercenaries, they soon turned their attention to establishing their own rule in southeastern Britain. Under King Ethelbert, Kent became a powerful and influential kingdom. Ethelbert, King of Kent between 560 and 616, was a pivotal figure in Anglo-Saxon history for several reasons. He was the first Anglo-Saxon king to convert to Christianity. Following the arrival of St. Augustine in 597 AD, sent by Pope Gregory the Great to bring the new faith to the Germanic peoples of Britain. Ethelbert's conversion and his support for the new religion helped spread Christianity across the Anglo-Saxon world. Kent also benefited from its proximity to Frankish Gaul, establishing close diplomatic and trade relations, which in turn increased its wealth and cultural influence. Ethelbert is also credited with issuing the first known code of Anglo-Saxon laws, known as the Law of Ethelbert. This legal code established regulations governing both secular and ecclesiastical matters and laid down protections for the clergy, reflecting influences from continental legal traditions. The code is significant as it represents one of the earliest examples of written law in England. Ethelbert's reign set precedents for kingship that influenced subsequent rulers in England. His model of governance integrated Christian values with royal authority, shaping the concept of kingship in Anglo-Saxon England. According to Bede, Ethelbert held the title of Bretwalda, meaning he was a high king who wielded influence over other kingdoms south of the River Humber. This status allowed him to exert control and foster alliances among various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Ethelbert's reign set precedents for kingship that influenced subsequent rulers in England. His model of governance integrated Christian values with royal authority, shaping the concept of kingship in Anglo-Saxon England. Kent's prominence during this period was not only political, but also economic. Canterbury, Kent's capital, became a centre of religious and intellectual life, with monasteries and churches rapidly being established following Augustine's mission. Kent is home to Canterbury Cathedral, England's oldest cathedral, and a centre for Christianity since Ethelbert's conversion. Rochester Cathedral is also significant as the second oldest cathedral in England. Unique to Kent is Gavelkind inheritance. This inheritance system allowed equal division of land among sons, contrasting with primogeniture practiced elsewhere in England. The same inheritance system was also used in Frankish Gaul, which at the end led to the end of Great Frankish Empire in 843 after the Verdun Treaty. To the north, the kingdom of Northumbria began to rise as a dominant force. Northumbria was born from the unification of two earlier kingdoms, Bernicia in the north and Deira in the south. Bernicia was located in what is now southern Scotland and Northumberland and established around 547 AD by Ida, king of the Angles, who is often referred to as Ida the Flame-Bearer. He founded a royal seat at Bamberg, which became a significant centre for the Bernician kings. Deira, located to the south, was another early kingdom with its capital likely at York. The two kingdoms frequently engaged in conflict due to their rivalry, which was rooted in their distinct royal lineages and territorial claims. In 604 AD, Ethelfrith of Bernicia united the two territories through conquest, thus founding the powerful kingdom of Northumbria. Ethelfrith ruled from 593 to 616 AD. He was known for his aggressive campaigns against both the Britons and rival Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. His leadership expanded Northumbrian territory, and by the time of his death in 616 AD, Northumbria was one of the most powerful kingdoms in Britain. However, it was under King Edwin, r. 1616 to 633 AD, that Northumbria reached its early peak. Edwin not only extended Northumbrian control over vast territories, but he also converted to Christianity in 627 AD, greatly enhancing the kingdom's prestige and influence. Northumbria became a leading centre of Christian learning and culture, with monasteries like Lindisfarne and Jarrow producing important works of religious and historical scholarship. The stability of Northumbria began to wane with the arrival of Viking forces in the late 8th century. The Great Heathen Army captured York in 866 AD, leading to significant Norse settlement and influence over the region. By the mid-10th century, following a series of conflicts and changes in power dynamics, Northumbria ceased to exist as an independent kingdom after being absorbed into the Kingdom of England around 954 AD. The next kingdom we'll explore is East Anglia, located in the eastern part of England. Established by the Angles in the late 5th century, this kingdom encompassed areas now known as Norfolk, Suffolk, and parts of Cambridgeshire. East Anglia emerged as a key power in the early 7th century under King Redwald, who ruled from 599 to 624. He was a ruler from the Wuffingas dynasty. Redwald is notable for his mixed religious practices, maintaining both pagan and Christian traditions. Around 616 AD, after a major victory against Northumbria, he was recognized as a Bretwalda, an overlord of several Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Redwald is also linked to the famous Sutton Hoo ship burial discovered in 1939. The burial site, filled with treasures, a ship, and elaborately crafted weapons, reflects the wealth and influence of East Anglia during his reign. Politically, Redwald played a significant role in supporting Edwin of Northumbria, helping him regain his throne after years in exile. Despite being smaller than Northumbria, East Anglia was a significant player in the intricate alliance networks that characterized early Anglo-Saxon politics. However, the kingdom faced external threats, particularly from Mercia. In 794 AD, King Ethelbert II was executed on the orders of Offa of Mercia, leading to a period where East Anglia lost its independence. A major turning point came in 865 AD with the arrival of the Danish Great Heathen Army. After defeating East Anglia, they killed King Edmund the Martyr in 869 AD, effectively absorbing the kingdom into the Danelaw, the area under Danish control. Throughout its existence, East Anglia was an important centre for trade and culture. Its fertile land supported agriculture, especially in wool and textiles, making it one of the wealthiest regions in England before industrialisation shifted economic focus. Culturally, it contributed to early medieval literature and monastic scholarship. The Kingdom of East Anglia played a pivotal role in early English history through its political power, cultural achievements, and interactions with neighbouring states. Its legacy still shapes the identity and historical narrative of modern East Anglia. To the west, the Kingdom of Mercia emerged in the mid-6th century, founded by Angles who settled in what is now central England. Unlike the coastal kingdoms of Kent and East Anglia, Mercia's position in the heart of Britain allowed it to expand aggressively. Early Mercian rulers such as King Penda R. 626 to 655 AD were notable for their military campaigns and their determination to resist Christianization. Penda, who remained a staunch pagan, waged wars against his Christian neighbours, most notably Northumbria and Wessex. Penda's death in 655 AD at the Battle of Winwade marked a turning point for Mercia. Afterward, Mercia gradually embraced Christianity, but its political ambitions remained fierce. After Penda's reign, his son Wulfhere restored Mercian independence from Northumbrian rule and further extended the kingdom's influence. He successfully captured territories in Kent and established London as an important Mercian centre. Wulfhere's brother, Ethelred, strengthened Mercia's position by recovering previously lost lands and asserting control over other Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, ensuring Mercia remained a dominant force in the region. King Ethelbald ruled from 716 to 757 during what is often called the Golden Age of Mercia. Under his leadership, the kingdom achieved its peak, with Bede recording that by 731 AD, all southern provinces were under his authority. Ethelbald's reign was marked by considerable territorial growth and the strengthening of political power, including forming alliances through strategic marriages. By the 8th century, under the rule of King Offa, R757 to 796 AD, Mercia reached its zenith. Offa's reign is best remembered for the construction of Offa's Dyke, a massive earthwork along the border between Mercia and Wales, symbolising both Mercia's military strength and its rivalry with neighbouring Welsh kingdoms. Offa also established diplomatic ties with Charlemagne, the king of the Franks, which further enhanced Mercia's influence beyond the island. At its height, Mercia controlled much of southern and central England, rivaling both Northumbria and Wessex for dominance. Following Offa's death, Mercia's power began to wane, especially with the rise of Ecgbert, king of Wessex. In 825 AD, Ecgbert dealt a critical blow to Mercia by defeating Beornwulf at the Battle of Ellendun, resulting in the loss of key territories such as Kent and Sussex. This defeat marked a pivotal shift in the balance of power within England. The late 9th century brought additional challenges as Danish invasions destabilised Mercia. By 877, the kingdom was divided between English and Danish-controlled lands, leading to a steady erosion of Mercia's political independence. Despite efforts to recover, including Wiglaf's brief restoration in 830 AD, Mercia never fully regained its former strength. Mercia's ascent to power was defined by effective leadership, successful military campaigns, and shrewd political strategies, enabling it to control much of southern England at its height. However, internal conflicts, pressure from competing kingdoms such as Wessex, and foreign invasions eventually contributed to its downfall, signalling a major turning point in early medieval English history. The Kingdom of Wessex, also known as the Kingdom of the West Saxons, was a significant Anglo-Saxon kingdom in southern England. Wessex is traditionally thought to have been founded by Cerdic, who arrived in Hampshire around 495 AD. He was succeeded by his son or grandson, Cynric, and together they laid the foundation for the kingdom's early strength. Cerdic, often regarded as the first king of Wessex, is believed to have ruled from around 519 to 540 AD. The kingdom grew substantially under King Saulin, reigned 560 to 592 AD, who secured victories over nearby tribes such as the Jutes and Britons. His rule signalled the rise of Wessex as a dominant force in southern England. Wessex would eventually become the most important Anglo-Saxon kingdom, but its rise was gradual. During the 6th and 7th centuries, Wessex was one of several regional powers, often overshadowed by Mercia and Northumbria. Its rulers, such as King Cynegils, 611 to 643 AD, worked to consolidate Wessex's territories, and Cynegils was the first West Saxon king to embrace Christianity, converting in 635 AD with the help of Bishop Birinus. Throughout the 7th and 8th centuries, Wessex engaged in numerous conflicts with its neighbours, particularly Mercia, which sought to expand its control over southern Britain. Despite these challenges, Wessex's geographic position, shielded by natural barriers like the River Thames, allowed it to remain relatively secure from northern aggression. Over time, Wessex would become a stronghold against external threats, especially the Vikings in the later 9th century under Alfred the Great, about whom we will speak extensively in our next video. Alfred introduced major military reforms, created a system of fortified towns, burhs, and championed education and literacy, including the development of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. His initiatives laid the foundation for a more unified England. Alfred's grandson, Athelstan, extended Wessex's influence even further, and in 927 AD he became the first king of England after defeating rival kingdoms and recovering lands from Viking rule. His reign represented the peak of Wessex's power as it evolved from a regional force into the core of a unified English kingdom. The legacy of Wessex persisted through its cultural contributions, including its influence on literature and governance, shaping the course of English history. The Kingdom of Wessex played a crucial role in shaping early medieval England through its military achievements, cultural contributions, and efforts toward political unification. From its founding by Cerdic to its height under Alfred and Athelstan, Wessex was central in forging a unified English identity that would persist through later historical changes. By the end of the 7th century, the major Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, Northumbria, Mercia, Wessex, Kent, and East Anglia, were locked in a relentless struggle for dominance. These kingdoms, although geographically distinct, were deeply interconnected through alliances, marriages, and, most notably, through conflict. As each kingdom sought to expand its influence, military engagements and political maneuvering shaped the landscape of early medieval England. The early 7th century saw Northumbria emerge as the dominant power under the rule of King Edwin, 1616 to 633 AD. Edwin's victory at the Battle of Hatfield Chase in 633 AD against a coalition of Penda of Mercia and Cadwallon of Gwynedd helped solidify his control over large parts of Britain. However, Northumbria's dominance was soon challenged by Mercia, which would rise to prominence under King Penda, 626 to 655 AD. Penda, a pagan ruler, fiercely resisted the Christianized Anglo-Saxon kingdoms and launched multiple campaigns against his neighbors. One of the most pivotal battles during this period was the Battle of Mayserfield in 642 AD, where Penda decisively defeated and killed Oswald of Northumbria, weakening Northumbrian power and allowing Mercia to expand its influence further. However, Penda's defeat at the Battle of Winwade in 655 AD, where he was killed by Oswiu of Northumbria, shifted the balance once again. Northumbria reasserted its dominance, but Mercia remained a formidable force, recovering quickly under Wulfa, 658 to 675 AD, and later Ethelred, 675 to 704 AD. As the 8th century progressed, Wessex began to assert itself, although Mercia under kings like Ethelbald, 716 to 757 AD, and Offa, 757 to 796 AD, remained the most powerful kingdom. Offa, in particular, is remembered for his territorial expansion and the construction of Offa's Dyke, which fortified Mercia's western borders against Welsh incursions. Wessex, under King Cinewulf, 757 to 786 AD, clashed repeatedly with Mercia in attempts to resist Mercian domination. The Battle of Bensington in 779 AD saw Offa defeat Cinewulf of Wessex, asserting Mercian dominance over southern England. However, the pivotal Battle of Ellendon in 825 AD would mark the beginning of the end for Mercia's supremacy. King Ecgbert of Wessex defeated Beornwulf of Mercia at this battle, resulting in Wessex gaining control over Kent, Sussex, and Surrey. This victory established Wessex as the dominant power in southern England and laid the foundation for Wessex's eventual unification of England. While the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were engaged in internal conflicts, a new external threat began to emerge in the late 8th century: the Vikings. The first recorded Viking raid on England occurred in 793 AD, with the devastating attack on the monastery at Lindisfarne in Northumbria. This event marked the beginning of a series of Viking raids and invasions that would destabilize the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms for the next several centuries. The Great Heathen Army, a large force of Viking warriors, arrived in 865 AD and launched a full-scale invasion. This army was led by the sons of the legendary Viking Ragnar Lothbrok, including Ivar the Boneless, Halfdan Ragnarsson, and Ubba Ragnarsson. The Vikings quickly overran East Anglia, defeating and executing King Edmund the Martyr in 869 AD. East Anglia, after Edmund's death, was absorbed into the Danelaw, the territory under Viking control. The Battle of York in 866 AD saw the Vikings capture the important city of York, further weakening Northumbria, which had already been ravaged by internal strife. Northumbria's power diminished significantly after this defeat, and the kingdom was eventually divided between English and Viking-controlled lands. By the late 9th century, the Viking threat had spread to Mercia and Wessex. Mercia suffered significant losses, with the Vikings capturing Derby, Leicester, Nottingham and Stamford, which became part of the Danelaw. By 877 AD, Mercia had been divided between Viking-controlled lands and those still under English rule. However, it was in Wessex that the most decisive resistance to the Vikings emerged. King Alfred the Great, 871 to 899 AD, of Wessex successfully repelled the Vikings at the Battle of Ashdown in 871 AD, securing a major victory against the great heathen army. Alfred's reign is notable for his military innovations, such as the creation of burhs, fortified towns, and the establishment of a navy, which helped protect Wessex from further Viking incursions. The Battle of Edington in 878 AD marked a significant turning point. Alfred defeated the Viking leader Guthrum, forcing him to convert to Christianity and sign the Treaty of Wedmore, which established boundaries between Wessex and the Danelaw. This victory not only preserved Wessex's independence, but also set the stage for the eventual unification of England under Alfred's successors. While Wessex managed to resist the Vikings, the northern and eastern regions of England remained under Danish control. The 10th century saw Edward the Elder, 899 to 924 AD, Alfred's son, and Ethelflaed, Lady of the Mercians, lead successful campaigns to reclaim territory from the Danes. King Athelstan, Alfred's grandson, achieved the unification of England after his victory at the Battle of Brunanburh in 937 AD, where he defeated a coalition of Vikings, Scots, and Britons. This battle is often considered one of the most significant in the history of early England, securing Athelstan's rule over the newly unified kingdom. The Anglo-Saxon period, circa 410 to 1066 AD, is one of the most formative in the history of England. Despite the relative scarcity of written records compared to later periods, a wide range of sources, written texts, archaeological discoveries, artifacts and inscriptions offer invaluable insights into this era. Together, these sources help reconstruct the political, cultural and social transformations that shaped early medieval England. Below is a detailed examination of the most important sources that historians rely on to understand the Anglo-Saxon world. Perhaps the most significant source from the Anglo-Saxon period is the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. This historical record was initiated during the reign of King Alfred the Great in the late 9th century and is a compilation of year-by-year entries documenting major events such as battles, royal successions, and natural phenomena. The Chronicle was not a single document, but a collection of manuscripts, often updated by monks across different regions of England. As a result, there are variations among the different versions, which sometimes provide unique local perspectives on the same events. This chronicle gives us detailed accounts of significant events, such as the Viking Invasions, the rise of Alfred the Great, and the unification of England under Athelstan. The chronicle is invaluable for understanding political changes, military campaigns, and the expansion of Christianity during this period. However, it is also important to acknowledge that it often reflects the interests of the ruling elites, particularly the Wessex dynasty, and may contain biases in favour of their perspective. The Venerable Bede's work, Ecclesiastical History of the English People, written in 731 AD, is one of the earliest and most important narratives of Anglo-Saxon England. As a monk in Northumbria, Bede offers a detailed account of the Christianization of the Anglo-Saxons, which he viewed as a transformative event. His work focuses on the spread of Christianity, the role of missionaries, and the establishment of monasteries. Bede's account is particularly valuable for understanding the conversion of King Ethelbert of Kent by St. Augustine in 597 AD, the pivotal event that sparked the spread of Christianity in southern England. The role of Irish missionaries like St. Aidan, who founded the monastery at Lindisfarne, a key religious centre in the north, Pope Gregory the Great's mission to England, which initiated the formal Christianization of the Anglo-Saxons. Bede's historical method was highly advanced for his time. He used multiple sources, including earlier records, oral traditions, and documents from Rome. His work is one of the most reliable written sources from the period and provides a clear window into both spiritual life and the political landscape of the early 8th century. His perspective, however, is deeply Christian, and his narrative often reflects the religious bias of a monk who viewed the conversion of the pagan Anglo-Saxons as a divine mission. A rich source of information on Anglo-Saxon governance and society comes from the legal codes and charters issued by various kings. These documents offer direct evidence of how the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were organized, what legal structures existed, and the relationships between kings, nobles, and the church. Law codes were issued by several prominent kings, including King Ine of Wessex, 688–726 AD, developed one of the earliest surviving law codes. It outlined criminal punishments, property rights, and compensation for injuries. Ine's laws reveal much about the social hierarchy, particularly the legal distinctions between freemen, nobles, and slaves. King Alfred's Law Code, circa 893 AD, is one of the most famous. Alfred combined traditional Anglo-Saxon laws with Christian ethics, using biblical references to justify his legal reforms. His laws address not only issues like theft and homicide, but also moral offences, such as breaking religious oaths. Charters provide further insights into land ownership, royal privileges, and the influence of the church. These documents, often grants of land from kings to their supporters or to religious institutions, contain detailed witness lists, which are invaluable for identifying the major political players of the time. One of the most famous charters is the Izmir Diploma from 736 AD, which documents King Ethelbald of Mercia's grant of land to a monastery. These records help historians trace how power was distributed among the nobility and the church, and how alliances were maintained. While much of our understanding of the Anglo-Saxon period comes from historical documents, Old English literature provides a cultural perspective reflecting the values, beliefs, and social structures of the time. The most famous example is the epic poem Beowulf, which, although set in Scandinavia, reflects the heroic ideals of Anglo-Saxon society. Key themes in Beowulf, such as loyalty to one's lord, the importance of kinship ties, and the ever-present threat of violence and warfare, mirror the realities of Anglo-Saxon life. The poem also provides insights into warrior culture, where personal valor and fealty to a king or lord were highly prized. Other notable works include The Battle of Maldon, a heroic poem that recounts the Anglo-Saxon defence against a Viking raid in 991 AD. The Wanderer and the Seafarer. These elegiac poems explore themes of exile, fate, and the transient nature of life, reflecting both the spiritual and warrior ethos of the Anglo-Saxon world. Through these literary sources, we gain a deeper understanding of Anglo-Saxon identity, not just as a historical and political construct, but as a cultural and psychological one. While written records provide narrative accounts, archaeological evidence is essential for understanding the material culture of the Anglo-Saxons. One of the most spectacular archaeological finds is the Sutton Hoo ship burial, discovered in 1939 in Suffolk. Believed to be the burial site of an East Anglian king, possibly Redwald, the grave contained an extraordinary array of treasures. a burial ship over 80 feet long, a richly decorated helmet, swords and shield, gold and silver artifacts, including intricate brooches and a lavish belt buckle. The Sutton Hoo finds reveal the craftsmanship, wealth and funerary customs of the Anglo-Saxon elite. Other archaeological sites such as Lindisfarne, Winchester and Jorvik, York, offer additional evidence of daily life, trade and religious practices. Excavations of Anglo-Saxon villages, monasteries and burial sites continue to reveal new information about social organization, agriculture, and the impact of Viking raids on Anglo-Saxon communities. Coins minted by Anglo-Saxon kings, particularly from the 7th century onward, provide a wealth of information about political authority and economic exchanges. The coinage of kings like Offa of Mercia and Alfred the Great often featured inscriptions of their names and titles, sometimes alongside Christian symbols, reflecting both their political claims and their embrace of Christianity. Runic inscriptions found on items such as the Frank's casket and the Ruthwell cross also offer insights into language, art and religious beliefs. These inscriptions are often in Old English or Latin and provide a direct link to the religious and cultural transformations of the Anglo-Saxon world. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were not isolated. They maintained diplomatic and trade relations with continental Europe and Scandinavia. Sources such as Frankish annals, Irish chronicles, and Viking sagas offer external perspectives on Anglo-Saxon England. For example, the Annals of Saint-Bertin, a Frankish chronicle, records diplomatic relations between King Offa of Mercia and Charlemagne, highlighting the importance of Anglo-Saxon rulers in European politics. Similarly, Viking sagas, though written down centuries later, provide details of Viking raids on Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, especially during the 9th and 10th centuries. The Anglo-Saxon period is understood through a rich and diverse array of sources, from the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle and Bede's writings to archaeological finds like Sutton Hoo. Each source offers a unique window into the world of early medieval England. These sources, though varied in origin and perspective, together create a detailed tapestry of political, religious, and cultural life during the Anglo-Saxon era, helping historians piece together the rise and fall of kingdoms, the spread of Christianity, and the eventual unification of England. The Anglo-Saxon period was not only marked by political struggles and military campaigns, but also by remarkable intellectual and scholarly achievements. Two of the most prominent figures who played crucial roles in shaping the religious and intellectual landscape of early medieval England were the Venerable Bede and Alcuin of York. Their works laid the foundation for medieval scholarship and greatly influenced the cultural and spiritual development of Anglo-Saxon England and beyond. In this chapter, we will explore the lives, contributions, and legacies of these two towering figures. The Venerable Bede, often referred to simply as Bede, was born around 673 AD in the Kingdom of Northumbria, one of the most powerful and culturally rich kingdoms of Anglo-Saxon England. At the age of 7, he was sent to Monk Wearmouth Jarrow Abbey, a twin monastery led by Abbot Benedict Biscop, where he was educated and would remain for most of his life. The monastery housed a vast library filled with Latin texts, including works of theology, history, and classical authors, providing Bede with the intellectual resources that would shape his scholarship. Bede became a monk, theologian, historian, and teacher, and he spent his life studying, writing, and teaching within the monastery. He was ordained as a deacon at the age of 19 and a priest at 30, which was a testament to his early display of deep learning and piety. Bede's most famous work, Ecclesiastical History of the English People, written in 731 AD, is a monumental achievement that offers a comprehensive history of the Christianization of England and the early Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Divided into 5 books, Bede's history traces the origins of Christianity in Britain from the time of Roman occupation to the missionary efforts of St. Augustine of Canterbury, who arrived in 597 AD under the orders of Pope Gregory the Great. Key features of the ecclesiastical history. Bede details the conversion of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, including the pivotal role of King Ethelbert of Kent, who embraced Christianity following the mission of St. Augustine. He chronicles the establishment of monasteries, bishoprics, and the spread of Christian learning across England. His work provides accounts of key figures in English Christianity, such as St. Aidan, Cuthbert, and Wilfrid, highlighting their contributions to the growth of the Church. Bede's work also discusses significant political events, making it one of the earliest examples of integrating secular and ecclesiastical history in Western historiography. Bede's history is also famous for popularizing the AD Anno Domini dating system, which remains in use today. His meticulous attention to detail, his use of sources, and his commitment to presenting an accurate and comprehensive history have earned him the title of the Father of English History. Born around 735 AD, the same year Bede completed his great work, Alcuin of York was another towering figure in Anglo-Saxon intellectual life. Alcuin grew up in the Kingdom of Northumbria, a region known for its scholarly centres. He was educated at the renowned York Cathedral School, where he studied under Archbishop Ecgbert and Elbert, who had established York as a centre of learning, particularly in theology and the liberal arts. Alcuin became a monk, scholar, teacher and poet, and by the mid-8th century he had risen to the position of headmaster of the York Cathedral School. The school at York housed a library containing classical and theological works, and under Alcuin's guidance, it became one of the most prestigious educational institutions in England. Alcuin's intellectual reputation spread across Europe, and in 781 AD, while on a diplomatic mission in Italy, he met Charlemagne, the king of the Franks. Charlemagne invited Alcuin to join his court as a teacher and scholar. Alcuin accepted and became one of the leading figures in the Carolingian Renaissance, a revival of learning and culture initiated by Charlemagne's court. At Charlemagne's court, Alcuin was responsible for reforming education, overseeing the development of monastic and cathedral schools, and promoting the study of grammar, rhetoric, astronomy, theology, and scripture. He played a crucial role in standardizing Latin as the language of scholarship and helped establish a scriptorium to copy and preserve important manuscripts. Alcuin's influence on Carolingian reforms extended beyond education. He advised Charlemagne on matters of religious policy and moral conduct, promoting the revival of monastic discipline and the reform of the Frankish Church. Alcuin also contributed to the development of Carolingian minuscule, a clear and legible script that allowed for the efficient copying of texts and became the foundation of modern Western script. Some of Alcuin's key contributions include his promotion of classical learning at the court of Charlemagne, helping to preserve and transmit ancient knowledge during a time when much of Europe was in turmoil. His role in the production and dissemination of Christian texts, which were copied in large numbers in the Carolingian scriptoria. His authorship of numerous theological treatises, letters and poems, many of which survive today as reflections on monastic life, Christian virtues and education. In 796 AD, Alcuin retired to the Abbey of St. Martin in Tours, where he continued to write and teach until his death in 804 AD. Even in retirement, Alcuin's influence was profound. He helped shape the next generation of scholars and religious leaders. His ideas on education and religious reform endured throughout the medieval period and became an integral part of the intellectual fabric of Western Europe. Alcuin's role in the Carolingian Renaissance was critical in bridging the intellectual worlds of Anglo-Saxon England and continental Europe. His work in education, language, and theology ensured that the achievements of the Greco-Roman world were passed on to future generations. While both Bede and Alcuin were key figures in Anglo-Saxon intellectual life, they worked in very different contexts. Bede remained in Northumbria for his entire life, dedicating himself to the monastic life and the task of chronicling the history of Christianity in England. His works reflect a deep engagement with Christian history and scholarly rigor within a strictly ecclesiastical framework. Alcuin, on the other hand, became an international figure, leaving England to serve at the court of Charlemagne. His work was broader, focusing on the revival of learning, educational reform, and the establishment of Christian culture in the broader context of Carolingian Europe. Together, these two figures represent the heights of Anglo-Saxon scholarship and the transmission of knowledge during the early medieval period. Bede's historical works provided a foundation for understanding the development of Christian England, while Alcuin's educational reforms ensured that learning and scholarship would continue to flourish across Europe. The legacies of Bede and Alcuin are profound. They both contributed to the preservation and transmission of knowledge during a period often seen as intellectually dark. Through their work, they laid the foundations for the medieval intellectual revival, influencing monastic education, Christian scholarship, and the overall cultural development of medieval Europe. Bede's focus on history and theology ensured that the Anglo-Saxon past would be remembered and celebrated, while Alcuin's efforts in education and language reform extended the reach of Anglo-Saxon learning far beyond England. Together, they helped define the intellectual legacy of the Anglo-Saxon period, and their contributions resonate even today. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating world of the Anglo-Saxon period. From the fall of Roman Britain to the rise of powerful kingdoms like Mercia, Northumbria, and Wessex, we've covered key moments, battles, and figures that shaped the early history of England. But remember, this is just the beginning. In future videos, we'll explore even more pivotal events and figures, such as the legendary Alfred the Great, who successfully defended Wessex from the Vikings, and his grandson Athelstan, the first king to unite all of England. We'll also take a closer look at the arrival of the Great Heathen Army, the establishment of the Danelaw, and how these events forever changed the landscape of early medieval England. If you're as excited about Anglo-Saxon history as we are, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. We also invite you to join our Facebook group, where you can dive deeper into the discussions, share your thoughts, and interact with fellow history enthusiasts. We'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your favorite part of the Anglo-Saxon period or any topics you'd like us to explore in future videos. Don't forget to like, share, and help us spread the love for history. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to continuing this journey through history with you. See you in the next episode.